So today I'm talking a little bit about logic versus intuition, and both are very important, very useful faculties, but we don't want to spend too much time in logic because I feel that everybody in society tells us, pressures us to be in that logical side of our brain. And sometimes our logical side of our brain can actually get us into trouble. For example, our logic can convince us that nothing is wrong, with a personal relationship, when maybe in fact your partner is actually cheating on you and you're ignoring a signal from your intuition because you don't want to look like you're dramatic, you don't want to look like you're needy or whatever. But I mean, there are ways of dealing with the situation when these types of issues come up that aren't dramatic or aren't needy. But if you kind of shut it down, you shut down that intuitive spark inside of you and you just ignore it, you'll stop getting the signal. And you could actually be putting yourself in harm's way sometimes. In fact, our bodies are really good at telling us, say if we're in a playground and there is somebody like a pedophile, our body sends a very strong signal that you shouldn't trust a person when you're encountering a stranger like that. And the problem with those things are you don't never want to judge somebody or label them or say that out loud. But the thing is, when you're in situations with people and they don't turn out to be great people, you want to know as early as possible. You don't necessarily have to articulate it and open yourself up to danger per se. But if you just get a bad feeling around somebody you don't know, especially if you're in a situation where you're looking after a child, just take them away. That instinct is something that Oprah has talked about on her show. And not only Oprah, the expert she brought in, the police officer, was talking about this, that when we're in dangerous situations or we're about to face danger, we have a very strong instinct in our body that warns us that something isn't right. And that's very, very important for women to know. So when you're getting to know a new gentleman, or you're dating, or you're figuring out who you want your partner to be in the future, never ever override that signal that something is wrong with a gentleman, because so often women do, and that's exactly when we jump into the abusive relationship. We might look into the person and think, oh, they're a millionaire, they are tall, they're handsome or whatever, but some alarm bell is going off in our bodies. Or maybe we even just have been in a relationship for a long time and maybe previously it was a secure, happy attachment. But more recently, maybe the guy has been doing something bad behind your back, And when you have that feeling in your body, you don't have to confront him and say, I have a weird feeling in my body and therefore I think you're cheating on me. That's probably not a good thing to say. You don't want to reveal your cards, so to speak. But what you can do maybe is start looking into ways like, if I were to separate from this guy and I were to find out he was cheating, what would that look like? What would I do next? How could I protect myself, And just start looking at the options quietly for yourself and start working on a plan that feels good. Look for the next step. You may not necessarily break up overnight, but do the next thing that's going to make you feel good. Maybe if your partner is acting a little shady and you're doing a lot of things for him, maybe it's time to stop. Maybe just leave him alone and give him space. Often giving people space can solve a lot of problems, and it's a great first step to try before you resort to more drastic measures when you're having serious problems with somebody. Also, when you're following your intuition, not everything is necessarily a negative intuition, right? I like to talk about those things because they're really important. Sometimes your intuition can give you a clue to slow down, and that's really common in personal relationships as well. Maybe the guy isn't totally a bad guy, but he's pressuring you to have sex on the first date or something. Your intuition may not necessarily tell you he's a horrible person, but it may give you what I call a yellow light, telling you to slow down. Figure out some way to get him to back off a little bit, but don't cut the relationship completely. I think that's very helpful feedback to know. And then there are other, intuitive signals like that I call green lights that are basically inspiration. Like maybe you should start a business. Maybe you're really talented at cooking and you don't know it. Maybe it's time to try a new sport and it's the one that's actually the best fit for you, that's going to keep you interested in exercise. Maybe there's this beautiful new food at the grocery store that's really good for you that you need to try. And you get intuitions to try that thing. Sometimes people get a little suspicious of intuition because they think green light intuition can be like permission slip to go drink beer or drink a bottle of wine or whatever. Those permission slips, I'm not saying they never happen, but our intuition and our bodies are pretty aware that 99% of the time alcohol is not great for us, I would say. Your body intuitively knows that it's cancerous and that you shouldn't be drinking too much. However, I mean, the government per se put out a new standard recently saying you can have 2 drinks a week. It used to be 1 drink a day, which is really interesting because I think what that says is you shouldn't drink regularly. But if you have a drink once in a while in a celebratory nature, it's kind of okay for your body. Your body will take it. But actually judge by how your body responds to alcohol rather than some government standard. I think the government standard is reflecting people's feelings in their body and how they feel about alcohol, but they've quantified it. But judge for yourself how alcohol feels in your body. Maybe to you it doesn't feel that bad and your body can handle it. And then other people, they may be so sensitive that they can't have any at all. And I think it varies from person to person. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed my little talk about logic versus intuition. There's nothing wrong with following the logic, understanding the government standards, the external authorities on things. But at the end of the day, you should judge for yourself based on how your body feels. Like, for example, those allergy tests that you take for food usually aren't accurate. But you can tell how food feels in your body if you just pay attention to how you feel while you're eating it, right? And then you'll know what kind of food is right for you.